Tucker Carlson got his clock cleaned by U.S. Ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee. Hi, this is Joel Rosenberg in Nashville. Just came through the National Religious Broadcasters Convention and the Judeo-Christian Zionist Congress here in Nashville, heading to Washington next. But I just want to give you an update on what we're seeing as All Israel News is reporting on, the showdown. It was actually a titanic showdown between Tucker Carlson and Ambassador Huckabee. What was so interesting to me is that Huckabee was calm, clear, and convincing. He had his facts, he knows his brief, and he systematically exposed, dismantled, and then proved one lie that Tucker Carlson was saying after another. I mean, and it was dozens and dozens of lies that Tucker said on the podcast, which lasted more than 2 hours, almost 2.5 hours, which was amazing. Huckabee just worked his way through it. And I want to share with you just a few of the lies that Huckabee exposed. And you can go to All Israel News for more of the specific details. But basically what you need to know is this. First, the biggest story coming out of it so far is that Tucker Carlson accused Israeli President Isaac Herzog as being connected to, a friend of, the sick sexual predator, sexual trafficker, Jeffrey Epstein, right, who died in 2019 after being charged with all kinds of federal sex trafficking crimes. And he'd been convicted of other crimes in the past in Florida. Tucker Carlson flatly stated that Isaac Herzog had been on what he called Pedo Island, meaning the island in the Caribbean that Jeffrey Epstein owned and would invite people to, and had all kinds of sexual debauchery and all kinds of underage young girls there, that he trafficked in these girls, prostitution, massages, just sick stuff. And what Tucker Carlson did was accuse, it was barely even an accusation, it was just flat out stating that President Herzog had been involved it at least had been to the island, had connection with Jeffrey Epstein, and that this was all known in the Epstein files that have been released thus far. And that why wasn't Huckabee on top of this? Why isn't Huckabee confronting President Herzog about why would you go to the pedo island, as he called it? Why? Because of pedophilia, of men having sexual relations with children girls under the age of 18. And so a pedophilia island, Tucker calls it Pedo Island. And Tucker was like prosecuting Huckabee, or trying. Huckabee's like, well, first of all, this is the first I've heard of it, Tucker. So you're asking me, have I confronted President Herzog about it? No, I've never even heard of it. It's not been in the Israeli press, not been in the American press, not been in the international press. I've never heard of this. And I would be surprised, Huckabee said, that someone of Herzog's stellar reputation would be involved in any of that. But as Tucker kept pressing, and with such judgment, that Huckabee, Ambassador Huckabee, as a father, as a husband, as a Christian, how could you not be disgusted by this? How could you not be confronting this? It was pretty relentless. And the idea was, it was clear. It was clear what the goal was. Tucker Carlson was trying to smear the president of Israel as being involved in this disgusting, sick Epstein sexual debauchery and pedophilia and sex trafficking, and that a Christian Zionist like Ambassador Huckabee doesn't even care. First of all, Huckabee said to Tucker, I've never heard of this, but I will ask the president about it. And he did, and immediately President Herzog's office issued a flat, complete, sweeping, and very strong denial. It said that President Herzog had never even had any contact with, doesn't know, never been to the island for sure. There had been a photograph that a British reporter had put out there as part of her reporting about the connections between, the alleged connections between Herzog and Jeffrey Epstein. And this woman, this reporter, had put out a photo on her social media in which she showed Herzog arm in arm with Jeffrey Epstein on the island and with several beautiful girls. Well, the reporter has since admitted and apologized that that's an AI photo. It's a fake photo. There's no bearing in reality. And she admitted, this reporter admitted, she never checked her sources. She never did due diligence. She just put it out there. And then she took it down and she apologized. And that was weeks ago. Okay, that was early February. So Tucker Carlson came into this interview trying to make this allegation and to make this smear stick. Herzog's office would have none of it. He came out hard and strong and definitive. We've had absolutely no connection. The president has no connection to Epstein ever. And the statement that Herzog's office put out just warned Tucker that this may be libel and defamation of character, and that the president's office is considering a lawsuit. This rattled Tucker. I can't really think of an example where Tucker Carlson has been so rattled by making such smears and allegations and then having such a strong and definitive denial that it's clear he's actually worried about a lawsuit now. So he put out a video on his social media feed, X. He apologized. He edited his video and he took out that section of the podcast with with the things that he was saying against Herzog.
When I interviewed Ambassador Mike Huckabee in Israel the other day, I asked him about the Epstein files, specifically about an email the Department of Justice released from December of 2014 from Jeffrey Epstein to his friend Leon Black, inviting him to his now famous island in the Caribbean. And in that email, he says lots of other people are coming, among them, quote, Herzog and Ehud Barak. And so I asked Huckabee, were you aware that this email suggests that the current president of Israel, Isaac Herzog, went to Epstein's island? And Huckabee said, no, he wasn't. And I asked him about it again. So at the time I said that, there had been news items about this. In fact, there was a protest against Herzog on the basis of this email when he went to Australia recently, and he hadn't responded to any of that. Well, now we've received a long letter from President Herzog's office denying that he went to Epstein's island. In fact, denying unequivocally that he had any contact with Epstein ever. They didn't know each other. They never emailed with each other, never been in the same room. They had no relationship of any kind. I've gotten a lot of letters like this over the years from people alleging, oh, you got it wrong, but rarely do you get a denial this unequivocal. And so for that reason, we are taking it seriously. There's nothing worse than impugning the reputation of an innocent man. And so I just want to say clearly, I'm sorry to imply that I knew something I didn't know. Of course, I don't know that Isaac Herzog was on the island. I was referring to that email and the protest against him, but I don't know that. And I didn't mean to suggest that I do know that. And I also wanted to air his side of this. Again, President Herzog says he's never had any contact with Epstein ever. And so I just want to say that in the interest of honesty and transparency. Thanks.
And he's hoping that this will end it. Will it? I don't know. I mean, I think the president's office is really upset, and I think we're going to see whether Herzog and his team accept the apology and let it be that, or decides, no, Tucker purposely tried to libel and defame the character of the president and put it out there, right? You know, Tucker's X feed, his social media feed, is 17 million followers, right? So when Mike Huckabee, Ambassador Huckabee, countered and said, I don't know anything about this. This doesn't sound like, you know, the president I know, but I will find out. Huckabee has 1.9 million followers on X. So, and then there's millions and millions of people that have seen the podcast already on YouTube and on social media. So the damage of the lies have already been done. The question is whether the retraction is enough to cause President Herzog to not pursue the lawsuit. So we'll keep watching that, and we'll report on that at All Israel News. There were multiple other allegations. I mean, lies that Huckabee just systematically exposed. And we'll let me give you another one just for the moment. Like Tucker's claimed that he was manhandled, mistreated at the airport in Israel as he was preparing to leave the country, and was hauled, that was the word he used, hauled by security into a side room and interrogated, questioned about his conversation with Ambassador Huckabee and why he was in Israel and so forth. Somebody on social media was able to exclusively release a clip of CCTV footage from the airport. Tucker, by the way, flew in on a private jet. He only spent about 4 hours on the ground in Israel, only at the VIP terminal at the Israeli airport, didn't even enter Israel, didn't even go and meet anybody else in Israel, didn't tour, didn't meet with Christians, didn't meet with Jews, didn't meet with anybody else, just did the interview with Huckabee. And the video clip of the CTT footage, it shows Tucker's laughing, he's hugging one of the security guys, they're taking selfie together, and Israeli officials adamantly deny that anything would happen like that. Huckabee's team that was there, they adamantly denied that any of that happened, and in fact that Tucker was treated respectfully, and he was treated like everybody else coming in and out of Israel. Of course, you're asked questions. It's a country that's been under attack directly for 8 decades, but specifically for the last 2.5 years. So that was something that Tucker and his team, put those lies out even before they released the video of the interview. But at the beginning of the interview, Tucker repeats these lies, and now they've all been debunked by Huckabee, by the Israeli security officials, by the Foreign Ministry of Israel, by the Israel Airport Authority, and by the video. So those are 2 examples. There's more, but I just want to give you these 2, I think, for right now, to give you a sense of there's something really wrong. I mean, deeply wrong. Tucker Carlson says in the video, hey, I'm not against Israel. And Huckabee leans forward. You hide that very well. Huckabee was calm. He was composed. He was a gentleman. He was a Christian gentleman. They talked about theological issues. We'll get into that more in our reporting as well as here on YouTube. But Huckabee was not rattled. He was not flustered. Often Tucker, he challenges. And sometimes, like with Senator Ted Cruz, Tucker rattled Cruz. There were times that Cruz didn't really know how to handle Tucker, even though they've been friends for years. And that, I think the senator did a good job. But there were moments that he did not do well, like when he forgot the actual passage in Scripture, Genesis chapter 12, verse 3, where God says, I will bless those who bless you. He's speaking to Abraham, and that's a promise that continues Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and so forth, the sons and children of Israel. Ted Cruz at the time, was sort of pressed by Tucker, where's that verse? Where do you get that from? And Cruz didn't remember the direct address of that specific verse, and Tucker sort of challenges, sort of mocks him. At one point, Ted Cruz and Tucker Carlson are having a firefight. They're debating over President Trump's Iran policy. Ted Cruz sees Iran as a serious threat, the way Tucker used to years ago, before he started being an apologist for the Iranian regime, for Hamas, for radical Islamism, for the Qataris, and so forth. But in that case, I'm contrasting how Ted Cruz did versus how Huckabee did. And I like Ted Cruz, don't get me wrong. He did amazing in that interview overall several months ago. But when they were having this fight, on the podcast, on Tucker's podcast, Tucker presses him. So how many people live in Iran? What's the population of Iran? Cruz like, I don't know. And Tucker feigns shock. He's like, you don't know. You don't know. You're advocating us to go to war with Iran, and you don't know the population of Iran? He goes, I don't know what it is. I mean, why is that relevant? And so Tucker's like, it's 92 million. The reason I say it is because in the firefight, as it were, it wasn't really a firefight, but it was a pretty intense exchange. It's just that Huckabee knew his facts and he kept his cool, and he's just a solid ambassador. He's a solid Christian. He knows his brief, and he knows the facts of the Middle East. And so at one point, Tucker Carlson is pressing him and saying, there's more Christians in Qatar, Tucker's new best friend, that's been paying him quite a bit of money. That's on public record. And Tucker is claiming that Qatar has more Christians, almost twice as many, he said, than Israel. And Huckabee just won't have it. He's like, that's just not true. You're not accurate, Tucker. There are more Christians in Israel than in Qatar. And Tucker's like, no, there's so many. And so Huckabee says at one point, all right, well, how many Christians are there in Qatar? And you can just see the panic suddenly. And he's like, you got me. I don't know. I mean, I could go get my phone. It's on my phone. I mean, I was just there, but the government told me it's more. And Huckabee just walks him through and he says, look, there are more Christians there in the sense that foreign workers who are living there, they live in a ghetto. These are service workers who serve the Qatar economy. They're not citizens. In Israel, there's 184,000 Christians who are citizens of the state of Israel. In 1948, Huckabee notes, there were about 34,000, and now there's 184,000. And these are citizens with full rights, full protection of religious freedom, right to worship, right to share their faith, right to live their faith. And Huckabee just knew his stuff, and he handled himself well. And it turned out it was such a reversal that Tucker doesn't know what he's talking about. He's just hurling accusations. He's hurling lies, slurs, innuendos. He's trying to smear the Israeli government. He's trying to smear the American government. He constantly was accusing Huckabee of basically not being a good ambassador, of seeing his role as to be supportive of Israel, not to serve the American people and the American government. And Huckabee, again, was not having it. But it was an interesting exchange because we really saw Tucker's heart. It is filled with malice against Israel, malice against Jews. He's got malice against Christians. He claims to be a Christian, and he claims to care for Christians, but he doesn't understand the level of persecution and difficulties that Christians, foreign workers who live in Qatar, they can't wear a cross. Their churches can't show a cross. They can't read the scripture in public. They can't pray in public. They can't share their faith in public. And they can do all of that in Israel, and they're citizens. I'm one of them. And so a lot more to go into, but I just thought, because we haven't even gotten into the issue of Christian Zionism. What's a Christian? What is Zionism? What is a Christian Zionist? Those were big elements of this conversation. But I just wanted to give you a sense of what this podcast revealed. If you have the stomach for it, watch the whole thing. It runs about 2 hours and 45 minutes. But the first 20 minutes to a half an hour are Tucker just setting up a series of lies and how he was badly treated in Israel. I mean, it's just such nonsense. But Huckabee handled it so well. And the facts are important. And the fact that Tucker was so rattled and really didn't know his stuff was kind of fun to watch. Pray for Tucker Carlson. Yes, he's doing a tremendous amount of damage against Israel, against Jews, against Christians, and he's attacking President Trump. He says he's not, but he is. He hates the policy of Trump in the 12-day war last year to neutralize and get rid of the Iran nuclear weapons program. Why would that bother him? Tucker had claimed last year that 20,000 Americans would die, but no American died. No one American even got injured last year. So I just say these things because Tucker's not well, right? He's wrong, and he's causing a lot of damage because he has a huge, he's the Goliath right now of anti-Israel social media presence, 17 million followers on Twitter alone, X alone. That's not going to win. It's not going to prevail, but his soul is in danger. I mean, I say that that's not a threat. I'm genuinely worried for him. And I ask you to pray for him and for his family and for his colleagues. He used to be pro-Israel. He used to be against the Iranian regime. He used to be a great defender of President Trump and the Trump agenda. And something has flipped. Something has changed. And everybody I talk to that knows Tucker and has been friends with him for years, I know a lot of people. I don't know Tucker personally. I've met him, years ago, but I don't know him. No, we've never spent any time talking. But his friends that I talk to, they don't know what's happened to him. Genuinely, it's not like they've told me and I'm not telling you. I mean, they don't know. So please pray. He's a neighbor. Maybe you see him as an enemy, but he claims to be a follower of Jesus Christ. He's said that he's just read the Bible all the way through for the first time last year. So if he's a true follower of Jesus, he's very ignorant of the scriptures. He's not been He's not been discipled. He has said publicly and repeatedly, nobody has taught him the Bible. He doesn't go to ask people for counsel. So it's a real problem. And I think he has gotten fixated, obsessed with Israel, Jews, and Christians that love Israel and the Jewish people based on the Bible. It's a problem. And please pray for him. From Nashville, from the National Religious Broadcasters Convention right here that we've been at all week, this is Joel Rosenberg for All Israel News.